The sand was warm under my swollen feet, but the air felt like ice in my chest. I had come to the beach for air, to ease the heaviness of being 7 months pregnant, to let the sound of the waves remind me that not everything in my life was chaos. But then I saw them. At first, just 2 silhouettes by the water. A man and a woman walking hand in hand, their laughter carried by the wind. My heart stopped when I recognized his stride, his shoulders, the way he leaned closer to her like she was the only person in the world. My fiancé. And the woman beside him, his ex. I froze where I stood, a paper bag of prenatal vitamins slipping slightly in my grip. The salt stunned my throat, and I couldn't tell if it was from the sea or the tears threatening to spill. He was supposed to be at work. He had kissed my forehead this morning, promised to come home early. And now he was here, holding her hand, brushing her hair back, smiling the way he hadn't smiled at me in months. I should have turned away, pretended I hadn't seen, but my feet betrayed me, moving closer, dragging across the sand until I stood just a few yards behind them. She noticed me first. Her eyes widened, then narrowed into something smug. She didn't even let go of his hand. Instead, she leaned into him, her voice lilting like a dagger dipped in honey. "Isn't this awkward?" He stiffened, spinning around, his face drained of color. My fiancé, my future, staring at me like I was the mistake, not him. The beach was crowded, families with children, joggers, teenagers snapping photos. Every eye seemed to turn in our direction. The humiliation was instant, a fire licking up my skin. I swallowed, forcing words through the lump in my throat. "So, this is where your meetings happen?" A nervous laugh rippled from a nearby couple. She smirked wider, tilting her head with cruel satisfaction. "You poor thing, did you really believe him?" Her hand slid over his chest, possessive, like claiming a prize. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Silence from him hurt more than any confession. My knees wobbled, but I held on to the bag in my arms like it could anchor me. For a moment, I thought I might collapse. Then I saw something. Something small but sharp. Dangling from her wrist was a bracelet. Gold, with a tiny heart-shaped charm. I knew it, because I had given it to him last Christmas, engraved with initials that were not hers. The world tilted. My heart sank deeper than the ocean behind them. She followed my gaze, noticed the bracelet, and smiled like a cat playing with its prey. "Oh, this old thing? He said it didn't suit you." Gasps whispered from the strangers watching us. I felt stripped bare, every weakness exposed under the sun. My fiancé finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Please, let's not do this here." But it was already too late. I pressed my palm to my belly. My child kicked, fierce and insistent, as if reminding me I wasn't alone. My shame cracked, replaced by something colder. I lifted my eyes, steady now, my voice clear enough for everyone to hear. "If this is what you want, then both of you should meet the person who deserves to know the truth." Her brows arched in confusion, his jaw tightened. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Your husband," I whispered, staring straight at her. The beach fell silent. Even the waves seemed to pause. And in that silence, I realized something. This wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. After that day on the beach, I couldn't go home right away. My legs carried me to the boardwalk, past the ice cream stands and souvenir shops, until I found an empty bench near the lifeguard station. I sat down, pressing both hands over my belly. My baby shifted inside me, restless, as if absorbing every tremor of my heart. I wanted to scream, to collapse, to ask the universe why. But all that came was silence and the faint smell of fried food drifting from a food truck nearby. This wasn't how my life was supposed to look. Just 2 years ago, I was a paralegal at a mid-sized law firm, saving up for law school. I had plans, a clear path. Then he walked into my life. Charming, attentive. He remembered my coffee order after one meeting. He opened doors, pulled out chairs, made me feel like I was the center of his universe. And when he proposed under the Christmas lights last year, in front of my family, I believed. I believed in the ring he slid onto my finger, in the promises he whispered about forever. I left my job when the pregnancy made mornings unbearable. He told me not to worry, that he'd provide, that my only job was to take care of our baby. I wanted to believe that was love. That sacrifice was what family meant. But love shouldn't make you smaller. It shouldn't leave you stranded on a bench by the ocean, clutching your unborn child, wondering if you've been nothing but a fool. A group of teenagers walked past me, laughing loudly, their music blasting from a speaker. One of them glanced at me, his eyes softening at the sight of my belly, then quickly looked away. Even strangers could see my vulnerability. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, determined not to break down in public again. I thought of my mother, gone 5 years now. She used to say, "The world will try to define you by your weakest moment. Don't let it." Her words echoed, but so did the image of that bracelet on my fiancé's mistress's wrist. My gift, my love, repurposed as a weapon against me. I leaned back, staring at the sky where seagulls circled overhead. That was when my phone buzzed in my pocket. A message. From an unknown number. "He's lying to you. If you want the truth, check his office drawer, the one with the locked latch. You'll find everything you need." My breath caught. My eyes scanned the beach automatically, searching for who could have sent it. But there were only families with kids, tourists with cameras, joggers on the sidewalk, no one looking at me. I read the message again, my pulse quickening. Someone knew. Someone had been watching. I should have deleted it, dismissed it as a cruel prank. But deep down I felt it, the cold certainty that the message was real. I pressed my hand to my belly once more. "We'll be okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I was promising my child or myself. The waves crashed louder, as if mocking my vow, because deep down, I already knew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was something bigger. The next morning, I stood in front of his office building. Glass walls glinted in the sun, sleek and imposing, a mirror of the man I thought I knew. I had been here before. Company parties, holiday gatherings where I smiled beside him, pretending I belonged in this world of tailored suits and polished shoes. But today, I wasn't a guest. I was an intruder. The anonymous text haunted me all night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words flashing across the screen. "Check his office drawer, the one with the locked latch." I pressed a hand against my belly and whispered, "We just need to know the truth." Inside, the lobby smelled of coffee and carpet cleaner. A receptionist greeted me with a polite smile that faltered when her gaze dropped to my pregnant stomach. I forced a shaky smile back, pretending I had every right to be there. "He's expecting me," I lied. She hesitated, but then waved me toward the elevator. My heart pounded as the doors closed around me. His office was on the 21st floor. The corridor was lined with framed certificates and photographs of charity galas. His name appeared in elegant silver letters on the frosted glass door. I gripped the handle, surprised at how easily it opened. The room smelled like cologne and printer ink. His desk sat neatly in the center, papers stacked with surgical precision. But I wasn't here to admire his orderliness. I circled the desk, crouching awkwardly as my belly pressed against the edge. There it was, the bottom drawer with the small silver latch. Locked. My hands trembled as I tugged at it. Nothing. Then I remembered. He had once given me a set of keys for emergencies, tucked away in my wallet. My fingers fumbled until I found the tiny brass key. When it slid into the lock, my breath caught. The drawer creaked open. Inside, not just documents, but a thick folder stamped with the same name I had glimpsed on the beach. Halberd and Finch, audit notice. Pages of financial statements spelled out, numbers highlighted in red, notes scribbled in margins I didn't recognize. I skimmed line after line, my chest tightening. Offshore accounts, shell companies, transfers that didn't add up. This wasn't just infidelity. This was fraud. I sank into his leather chair, the folder trembling in my lap. My fiancé, the man I trusted with my future, with my child, was hiding something that could ruin more than just our relationship. Then I noticed another envelope wedged beneath the papers. Smaller, plain. I pulled it free and slid out the contents. Photographs. At first I thought they were of us. But no. These were of him, with her, his ex. Intimate dinners, hotel lobbies, her hand resting on his chest. Dates stretching back months, long before I ever suspected. And one photo stopped my breath entirely. The two of them with another man. Older, sharp eyes, wearing a charcoal suit. The same man I had seen at the restaurant bar. My fingers went cold. Who was he? Why was he in the photos? I shoved everything back into the drawer just as footsteps echoed in the hall. Voices. Laughter. The doorknob rattled. My pulse roared in my ears. I barely had time to lock the drawer again before the door swung open, and there he was. His eyes landed on me, startled, then narrowed with suspicion. "What are you doing here?" The folder's weight still burned against my memory. The photographs seared my brain. I stood slowly, my voice shaking, asking myself the same thing. He closed the office door behind him, the click of the lock echoing louder than the ocean waves I'd heard the night before. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He set his briefcase on the desk, eyes locked on me like I was an intruder in his carefully curated world. "What are you doing here?" he repeated, slower this time, his voice colder. I tried to steady my breathing. "I came because I needed answers." His gaze flicked to the drawer, the very one I had just closed, and a shadow passed over his face. "You've been through my things." It wasn't a question. "I had to," I whispered, "because you won't tell me the truth." He let out a dry laugh, rubbing his jaw. "The truth? You wouldn't even know what to do with the truth." The man I thought I knew, the one who once held my hair back when I was sick, who painted the nursery walls pale yellow, was gone. In his place stood someone harder, sharper. "You've been lying to me," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Not just about her." My throat tightened. "About everything." For a moment, I thought I saw fear flicker in his eyes. But then the mask slid back on. He walked around the desk, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "You think snooping through my desk makes you powerful?" he hissed. "It makes you pathetic. You should have stayed home, focused on the baby. That's your role." My hand instinctively went to my belly, protective. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "And if you know what's good for you, you'll forget whatever you think you saw." The threat was subtle, but it cut deeper than if he'd shouted. I straightened my back. "And if I don't?" His smile was cold. "Then you'll learn that reputations can be destroyed. Do you want your child to grow up with a mother everyone whispers about? A woman abandoned, unstable, desperate?" The words stabbed. I had expected anger. I hadn't expected cruelty so calculated. Before I could respond, the office door opened again, and she walked in, his ex. Her heels clicked on the tile, as if she owned the place. She didn't even glance at me, just strolled to his side and kissed his cheek, her perfume filling the room. "Oh, I didn't know you had company," she said sweetly, finally turning to me with a smile that could slice glass. Or maybe I did. My stomach churned. She was supposed to be married. She was supposed to be someone else's problem. Yet here she was, walking into our life as if she belonged. He didn't push her away, didn't look guilty. He let her stand beside him, like they were united against me. "Why are you here?" I demanded. She laughed softly. "Why? Because this is where I belong." Because he finally came to his senses. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. "You both think you've won," I said quietly. "But you don't even realize the fire you're playing with." She tilted her head, intrigued. "Oh, and what fire is that?" I didn't answer. Instead, my gaze lingered on the photograph still vivid in my mind, the mysterious man in the charcoal suit. Whoever he wasn't just a bystander. Her smile faltered for the briefest second, as if she knew exactly who I was thinking of. That was all I needed, proof that their betrayal wasn't just personal. It was part of something larger. And I would find out what. 2 nights later, I found myself standing in front of the Grand Harbor Hotel, its glass chandeliers glowing like fireflies against the evening sky. He had insisted I come. After days of silence, he suddenly appeared at home with flowers, pretending nothing had happened, and urged me to attend the firm's charity gala by his side. I didn't trust him, but something inside me whispered I needed to be there. That whatever mask he was wearing, tonight it might slip. I wore the only evening dress that still fit, a navy gown stretched awkwardly over my swollen belly. As I walked into the ballroom, the scent of roses and champagne clung to the air. People turned their heads. Some smiled politely. Others let their eyes linger a little too long on me, whispering behind manicured hands. I followed him through the crowd, my heels clicking against the marble floor. My heart thudded as I recognized faces. Judges, lawyers, businessmen, people who once praised him as a rising star. And then I saw her. His ex, dressed in scarlet silk, glowing under the chandeliers, clinging to a glass of champagne as though she owned the night. She caught sight of me immediately. Her smirk widened, predatory. She walked over before I could turn away, looping her arm through his like she had the right. "Oh, you brought her," she said sweetly, loud enough for the guests nearby to hear. "How brave." The laughter from a cluster of women rippled like knives. I felt the sting, but I stood my ground. Funny, I didn't realize mistresses received invitations. Her smile froze for a second before curving sharper. Oh, I'm hardly a mistress. Some of us just know when to let go of broken things. Gasps spread through the crowd. My fiancé said nothing. He didn't even deny it. Heat rushed to my cheeks. My breath caught, but before I could speak, she raised her glass and tapped it lightly with a spoon. The ballroom quieted. All eyes turned toward us. I just want to congratulate this wonderful man, she announced, squeezing his arm. Not only is he the future of this firm, but soon he'll be welcoming a child into his life. For a moment, hope sparked, until she delivered the blow. Of course, one can only pray the baby's paternity is reliable. The room erupted in whispers. I staggered, my hands flying to my belly as if to shield my child from the words themselves. You. My voice cracked. She leaned close, her perfume choking me. Careful, she whispered. One word too loud, and you'll confirm what they all suspect. My fiancé finally spoke, but not to defend me. He cleared his throat and forced a laugh, addressing the crowd. Please, forgive her. Pregnancy hormones can be unpredictable. The humiliation burned so deep, I thought I might collapse. My legs shook under the weight of every stare, every whisper. And then I saw him again. Across the ballroom, the man in the charcoal suit stood near the bar, swirling a glass of whiskey. His eyes met mine, cold, unflinching. This time, he didn't look away. Something about his stare told me he knew more than anyone else in this room. Before I could move, the ex clinked her glass once more, raising it high. To new beginnings, she declared. For some of us, anyway. Laughter and applause followed, echoing like a sentence passed down by a jury. I stood frozen in the center of it all, humiliated, betrayed, and utterly alone. But beneath the shame, something else stirred. Rage. The morning after the gala, I could barely get out of bed. My body felt heavier than ever, though it wasn't just the weight of the baby pressing down on me. It was the stares, the whispers, the laughter that echoed in my skull. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her raising that champagne glass, declaring my humiliation to a room full of strangers. I lay curled on my side, clutching my belly. My baby kicked weakly, as if restless inside me. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears wetting the pillow. I didn't protect you last night. I didn't protect either of us. The phone rang several times, but I didn't answer. I knew it was him. He hadn't come home after the gala. Maybe he stayed with her. Maybe he wanted me to stew in my shame. Either way, I couldn't face him. Not yet. By midday, hunger forced me to move. I shuffled to the kitchen, every step aching. The fridge was half empty, milk gone sour, a carton of eggs past its date. I grabbed an apple and sat at the table, staring at the quiet apartment. Once, this place had felt like a promise. Now, it was a cage. I thought about calling my sister, but shame silenced me. What would I even say? That the man I was supposed to marry had humiliated me in front of half the city? That his mistress had questioned my baby's paternity? The world would believe them before me. That's what hurt most. Hours slipped by. I sat in silence until the shadows grew long across the floor. My head throbbed from crying. My hands trembled as I rubbed slow circles over my stomach, desperate to calm the little one inside. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps against the door. My heart leapt to my throat. For a moment, I thought it was him. I almost didn't open it, but something urged me forward. When I cracked the door, no one was there. Just an envelope on the mat. I picked it up with shaking fingers, no return address, my name written in block letters. Inside, a single photograph. It was her, the ex, but not draped in silk or flashing diamonds. She was standing on the steps of a courthouse, clutching papers. Beside her was the same man in the charcoal suit. On the back, scrawled in messy handwriting, "Ask her husband why she spends so much time here." I staggered back, my knees almost giving out. Husband. She still had a husband, and suddenly it clicked. The smugness, the certainty, the way she flaunted herself in front of me without fear. She wasn't afraid because she thought she was untouchable. But someone wanted me to know otherwise. I clutched the photo to my chest, my breath ragged. For the first time since the gala, the fog of despair thinned. Maybe I wasn't powerless. Maybe I wasn't as alone as they wanted me to believe. I pressed a kiss to my belly. "We're gonna get through this," I whispered. "And they're gonna regret underestimating us." But even as I said it, exhaustion dragged me down again. I curled back into bed, the photograph on the nightstand beside me, its edges sharp against the lamp's glow. I wasn't ready to fight yet. But a seed had been planted. And when it grew, it would be unstoppable. The photograph haunted me for days. I couldn't sleep without seeing her face in front of that courthouse, the man in the charcoal suit at her side, and that single word scrawled on the back, husband. I needed to know the truth. By the third morning, exhaustion gave way to determination. I slipped on the only coat that still fit and called a cab, clutching the photo in my pocket. I didn't have a plan, only a burning need for answers. The courthouse loomed in front of me, its columns tall and indifferent. I stepped inside, the echo of my footsteps magnified against the marble floors. My belly ached from the effort, but I forced myself to the records office. Public filings, I said softly to the clerk, sliding the photograph across the counter. Her name. The clerk glanced at the picture, typed into a computer, then disappeared into the stacks. Minutes later, she returned with a thin folder. I opened it with trembling hands. Divorce proceedings, filed months ago. Her name listed as petitioner, his name as respondent, and there it was, her husband's full name. I whispered it aloud, tasting the syllables. He wasn't a stranger. He was a name I recognized from whispered conversations at the firm's holiday parties. A wealthy investor, a man people said you never crossed if you wanted to keep your reputation intact. My pulse raced. She wasn't just sneaking around with my fiancé. She was tangled in something far bigger. A broken marriage to a man powerful enough to crush both of them if he wanted. I copied the documents and slipped them into my purse. As I turned to leave, a figure blocked the doorway. The charcoal suit. Up close, his presence was suffocating. His eyes locked on mine, unflinching, as if he'd been expecting me all along. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly. His voice was smooth, but underneath it was steel. I clutched my belly instinctively. "Who are you?" He tilted his head slightly. "Someone who knows more than you think. Someone who's been watching because you're not the only one being betrayed." My throat went dry. "You're her husband." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. "I saw the photographs," I whispered. "You know about them." His jaw tightened. "Of course I do. Do you think I'd let my wife and your fiancé prance around town without consequence?" The words hit like a storm. He wasn't just a bystander. He was part of the game. "Why show me this?" I asked. "Because," he said, stepping closer, lowering his voice, "they've underestimated you, just like they underestimated me, and that's a mistake they'll regret." Before I could respond, he slipped a business card into my hand and walked away, his cologne lingering in the air. I stared down at the card, no company name, just his name and a number. My baby kicked sharply, as if urging me forward. The world tilted, the humiliation, the betrayal. It wasn't just mine anymore, it was evidence, proof, a weapon. And suddenly, I understood. I wasn't powerless. I was holding the first piece of a puzzle they thought I would never find. I stared at his business card all night, the white rectangle glowing under the lamplight like it carried more weight than it should. I should have been afraid. Partnering with a man like him meant stepping into shadows I barely understood. But when I pressed my hand to my belly, I felt nothing but resolve. The next afternoon I called. His voice was calm, clipped. "Meet me." Discretion is everything. He chose a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, the kind with peeling paint and dusty curtains where no one would recognize either of us. I walked in, my coat wrapped tight around my belly, my pulse hammering. He was already there, seated in the corner nursing a black coffee. "Sit," he said simply. I obeyed, folding my trembling hands in my lap. For a moment, we just stared at each other. He studied me like I was a chess piece he needed to place. "You've been humiliated," he began. "They think they've broken you. But you've seen enough to know it isn't just an affair, it's bigger." I swallowed hard. The audit papers, the offshore accounts, the photos. I don't understand all of it, but— "You don't have to," he interrupted. "I do." He slid a folder across the table. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were bank statements, emails, and contracts, all tied to my fiancé and his ex. My stomach turned as I read the highlighted lines. Shell companies, money laundering, real estate deals under false names. "This isn't just betrayal," the man said. "It's crime. Organized, deliberate. They've been funneling money for months, and the audit notice you saw?" He tapped the papers. It's the beginning of an investigation that could destroy them both. I stared at him, words stuck in my throat. Why are you showing me this? His eyes hardened. Because I want her to burn. And I want him to go down with her. My hands shook as I closed the folder. I thought of the whispers at the gala, the smirks, the way they had laughed at my pain. And now this, proof that their empire wasn't built on love, but on lies. They won't stop, he continued. If they sense you know too much, they'll silence you. But if you're smart, you can use this. Public humiliation is one thing. Prison is another. The word prison lodged in my chest. Could it really happen? Could justice reach them? I touched my belly, grounding myself. What do you want from me? He leaned in. Play the part they expect. Stay quiet. Pretend you're broken. Meanwhile, gather everything you can. Friends, family, co-workers, they all see more than they admit. And when the time comes, you'll expose them in a way no one can deny. I nodded slowly, though fear crawled through me. And you? I'll handle the legal side, he said simply. But make no mistake, you'll be the one who lights the match. The baby kicked hard, almost violently, and I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. When I left the cafe, the air outside felt sharper, colder. But in my hand was the folder, heavier than my entire body. They thought I was broken. They had no idea, because now I had proof, and I had an ally who wanted revenge as much as I did. The woman I saw in the mirror a week ago was unrecognizable. Pale skin, swollen eyes, hair tied in careless knots. A shell of someone who had been humiliated into silence. But the woman staring back at me now was different. I stood taller. My shoulders squared, my hair brushed and falling neatly against a fitted blazer that hid my pregnancy belly more than the loose dresses I used to wear. Makeup softened the exhaustion on my face, but it wasn't vanity. It was armor. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control. It started small. I returned to my old law firm, not as an employee, but as someone seeking advice. The senior partners had always liked me, remembered my work ethic. When I showed them the documents from the folder, their eyes widened. They didn't dismiss me. They didn't pity me. They saw me as credible. You have enough here to trigger something serious, one partner whispered. If this hits the right channels, they won't be able to hide. The words lit a fire in me. I began organizing, every email, every receipt, every suspicious transfer I could find. I spoke to coworkers quietly, pretending to ask about casual things, but listening carefully when they mentioned his late nights, his strange phone calls, his business trips that lined up too neatly with hers. Piece by piece, the puzzle grew clearer. But it wasn't just the evidence that changed me. It was the way I carried myself. I stopped flinching when his name came up. I stopped crying when people whispered. Instead, I looked them in the eye, steady, unbroken. One afternoon, I went to a small boutique I used to love before everything fell apart. I bought a dress, sleek, black, elegant. Something that reminded me I was still a woman, not just a victim or a vessel for their cruelty. When I put it on at home, I barely recognized myself. The dress hugged me in the right places, and for the first time in months, I saw not just a mother-to-be, but a fighter. And the baby seemed to sense it, kicking stronger, steadier. You and me, I whispered, my hand resting over the swell of my stomach. We're going to walk into their world not as prey, but as fire. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. At the next family dinner, whispers circled around the table. Cousins who had once pitied me now looked at me with curiosity. Even my aunt leaned over and said, "There's something different about you, stronger." I only smiled. They didn't need to know the details yet. But the biggest shift came when I walked into his office building again. The receptionist who once looked at me with pity now blinked in surprise. Her eyes flicked to my sharp suit, the calm confidence in my stride. "Here to see him?" she asked carefully. "No," I said, my voice smooth. "Here to finish what I started." In that moment, I realized something. I no longer feared their power, because I had my own. And then, just as I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. A new message. No name, just the same unknown number as before. He's planning something big. Friday night. Don't miss it. My pulse quickened. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. Friday night arrived with the weight of a storm. The Grand Harbor Hotel glittered again, this time for an investors' dinner hosted by his firm. It was the kind of night designed to impress, to mask corruption with crystal glasses and polished speeches. And this time I wasn't attending as his fiancé. I was there with purpose. I wore the black dress, sleek and unyielding, and walked into the ballroom with my head high. No one whispered pity this time. If they whispered at all, it was curiosity. He stood at the podium, charming as ever, his ex draped at his side. They looked like royalty, basking in stolen glory. For a moment, rage burned through me, but I steadied myself. Tonight wasn't about anger, it was about justice. At the back of the room I spotted him, the husband, in his charcoal suit, giving me the slightest nod. My pulse steadied, we were aligned. The speeches dragged on until it was his turn. He spoke of growth, success, integrity, lies, all of it. My stomach churned as applause filled the room. Then, right on cue, the ballroom doors opened. 2 men in dark suits walked in, followed by a woman with a briefcase. The murmurs began immediately. "SEC investigators," the husband whispered as he passed by me. "Your documents did the rest." My heart thundered. The lead investigator approached the podium, cutting his speech short. "We're here regarding ongoing financial irregularities tied to this firm. Certain individuals are required for questioning." Gasps rippled across the room. His face drained of color. The ex clutched his arm, her smile faltering for the first time. I stepped forward, my voice clear. "You wanted to question paternity. You wanted to humiliate me. But tonight, the world sees the truth about you." Dozens of eyes turned my way. For once, I didn't flinch. The investigator laid a hand on his shoulder. "Sir, you'll need to come with us." He sputtered, denying, accusing me with his glare. "You did this." "Yes," I said simply, "and I'd do it again." The ex tried to slip away, but her husband intercepted her, presenting his own set of papers. "Divorce finalized, assets frozen, you're finished." Her face twisted, the mask cracking. "You can't do this." But no one listened. The room buzzed with reporters snapping photos, investors muttering about betrayal, colleagues stepping back as if afraid to catch his downfall. As the investigators led him away, our eyes met one last time. I expected hate. Instead, I saw fear. For the first time, he was the one exposed. I pressed a hand to my belly. My child kicked, strong and steady, as if sensing the shift. By the end of the night, the whispers had changed. No one pitied me anymore. They looked at me with respect, even admiration. Some nodded silently, as though they finally saw me for who I was, not a victim, but a survivor. Outside the hotel, the husband approached me. His expression was unreadable, but his words were firm. "You stood your ground. They'll never forget that." I nodded, exhausted but lighter than I'd felt in months. "I didn't just do it for me." He glanced at my belly, then back at me. "Exactly." When I returned home, the apartment felt different. Not a cage anymore, but a place of beginning. I placed the documents, the photographs, all the evidence onto the counter, then walked into the nursery painted pale yellow. I sat in the rocking chair, pressing my palm against my belly. "We're safe now," I whispered. The baby shifted, calm this time, as though agreeing. For the first time in so long, I smiled. Not because of him, not because of anyone else, but because I had found my strength, and that was something no one could ever take away again. 2 months later, the nursery wasn't just painted yellow, it was alive. I rocked gently in the chair, cradling my daughter against my chest. Her tiny breaths warmed my skin. Her fingers curled around mine with a grip stronger than I thought possible for someone so small. The city outside still whispered about the scandal, but none of that mattered here. The world could talk, judge, speculate, but inside this room, it was just the two of us. Sometimes I thought of the past, the betrayal, the humiliation, the nights I thought I wouldn't survive, but those memories no longer cut me open. They felt distant, like storms I had weathered. What remained was peace. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was him, the husband in the charcoal suit. Not as an enemy, not even as a reminder of revenge, but as someone who had walked through fire too. He didn't step inside, he only smiled faintly. Handing me a small bouquet of wildflowers. "For her," he said, nodding to the baby. "A fresh start." I thanked him quietly. We weren't bound by love, but by something almost as powerful. The shared knowledge that we had survived and refused to be broken. When he left, I looked down at my daughter again. Her eyes fluttered open, dark and curious, as though she already knew she had changed everything. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're free, and we'll build a life worth every heartbeat." Outside, the first rays of dawn spilled through the window, warm and golden. For the first time in a long time, I didn't just feel alive, I felt whole.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.